Hello and welcome to Elseworlds, a DC fan podcast. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris. And we also have a special guest here with us today is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I've been trying to, well, I haven't been trying, but I've been thinking of asking Chris for a while now of, maybe coming on here and chopping it up with you guys. So it's good to finally make that happen.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. I started my second summer class yesterday. Worked in the morning. Pretty normal stuff. We're good.
Awesome. So we have a special game that we're doing today, which is drafting superheroes. And if I understand it correctly, this is between all publications, correct?
Indeed.
Okay, awesome. So we will be drafting 5 each.
Yeah, yep. We'll do 5 each, and it's going to be snake style. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth.
All right. And with snake drafts, you always know that the first pick is the worst one to have, and that is the one that I have been blessed with. So here's how we're going to go. We're going to go me, Chris, and Ron. That was chosen randomly, not just the order that StreamYard has put us in here. But so that's the way we're going to go. Anything else I should know about this game before we start?
Only that it's not... when you think about drafting a superhero team, naturally, I think people's minds go to, oh, what is this? Like a 5-on-5, like battle royale kind of thing? That's not really what we're going for here. We're going in terms of what the hero's impact is on the zeitgeist, their iconic sort of nature, where they stack up with the rest of the heroes in the grand scheme of things in that regard. Longevity, impact, all of those kind of things.
All right, great. So in many ways, I've been blessed with the first pick. But before we get into that, Ron, if you could just tell us a little bit about your history of DC fandom and maybe just comic book fandom and who your favorite DC character is. And if you have a favorite DC film as well.
Yeah, sure. So my first introduction into the world of superheroes in general was through DC. Batman has been my favorite for my entire life now, going all the way back to when I'm 4 years old, playing with the action figures, all that stuff, the whole shebang. So DC, while I would say Marvel's probably overtaken it in recent years in terms of what I love and what I don't love, DC will always be the first for me. Batman will always be my favorite just because of that sort of sentimental tie. My favorite DC movie, I'll tell you, and I know it's not a popular take, but for me, The Flash is up there. I really loved it. We won't go into a whole spiel about that movie again because I know you guys have been covering it a lot on the channel, but I think probably my favorite would have to just be, I know it's chalk, but the original 1989 Batman. It's what got me into all this stuff. I remember vividly watching it with my brother when I was 4 years old and just being sort of enamored with the whole thing. The way that Tim Burton, and I actually put up a tweet about this recently, how he was able to sort of capture Gotham so well on the sort of limited resources they had on a late 80s movie set compared to what you see today. I'm taking the stuff from back then. So yeah, I would say the OG Batman's probably my favorite.
Michael Keaton Funko Pop approved.
Let's go.
But we're no longer tweeting, Ron. We are weaving over on
Right.
Threads is what we're
Right.
doing currently.
Right.
But yes, no, I just a quick plug there. I have joined Threads with our Elseworlds account as well, so you can follow us over there. I haven't posted anything on it yet, but we'll get around to it, I guess.
Work in progress.
Yes, work in progress. But nice to hear. So you said 89 was what got you into it, because I feel like for me, what really got me into Batman actually was the animated series. So I was born in 91, so the animated series started like a year after that. So that was a big part of my childhood, and it was the whole like Bruce Timm verse that kind of got me into DC when I was growing up.
Same. I while the 89 movie, and even though we kind of look at, or I wouldn't say we, but the general public tends to look back on the other Burton Batman movies as kind of not really so great. I loved those coming up as a kid as well. I can still go back and have a great time going back to watch, Batman and Robin, and like Batman Returns and all that stuff. Like it's so much fun. And to your point, yeah, the animated series as well was a big one for me. Just because there was so much of it to consume, you know what I mean? When you're a kid and you see a movie, it's like, okay, it's there and it lasts for like a week in your head, but then it's kind of gone for the most part. But the animated series is what really developed that love, because every day after, whether it was after school or, after baseball, whatever have you, you knew that show was going to be on, man. And it was really what kind of took my fandom as a kid to the next level.
Great. Well, nice to have you. So, and thanks for bringing this idea here so we can draft our characters.
Figured it was fitting, first time,
Yeah.
You got to bring a gift, right?
Right. I might go ahead and put this over on our Marvel feed as well, because since we'll be doing Marvel characters, I have a Marvel podcast called To the Infinity Saga and Beyond, which Chris was on to talk Guardians. So I think I might split this and put it on both feeds here, so that way more people get to see it. But yeah, so I guess I'll go. First pick of the 2023 superhero draft is out of Queens, New York, Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
Wow. Damn.
I think it's the right pick. I mean,
had to grab him. I do too.
So
not just my favorite character in comics, Spider-Man, but also if you're looking at impact and longevity, he's consistently now getting like billion-dollar films, while some of these DC characters and even Batman with the Batman didn't reach that level. So I do think when you look at merchandise sales and all of that good stuff, I think Spider-Man is kind of eclipsed. I think at one point he was probably tied with somebody like Batman, but I think through the Sam Raimi films, and then especially once he got introduced into the MCU, it kind of helped, push him even higher in the zeitgeist. So I think this was the no-brainer pick, and since I can't pick two in a row like Ron will get to do, I think I had to do this now.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it at all. I was, me and Chris were kind of talking behind the scenes before the show, and I thought it was a lock that you were going to go with somebody else. We won't start tipping picks early for later in the draft. But, wow, yeah, you messed up my draft.
Yeah, I know, because we usually talk DC on here, so people may not hear how much I love Spider-Man as much, but he was my guy growing up, and he's my favorite hero. So I felt like I had that. Once I saw I got first pick, I was like, all right, Spider-Man number one. Like, that has got to be what it is.
All right, for pick number 2, and if you hear my dog, she's having a dream or something. But for pick number
Really
2, I'm gonna go with Batman, and the reason I'm gonna go with Batman and not Superman is this: in the cultural zeitgeist of today, I think Batman is the number 2 character. I think he is on a mantle that Superman, in terms of cultural significance, is not there. We haven't had a Superman movie since Man of Steel. Superman Legacy has a great potential to bring Superman back into relevancy. But when you talk about relevancy today, and then you compare the historical importance of Superman and Batman, it's pretty equal. So I'm going to say Batman has always been the cash cow for DC. Batman in the 60s, Adam West. Then you have Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams changing it, Frank Miller. And then you have, I think Batman Begins is the most important superhero movie of all time. And I'll say, and you know what? It wasn't huge in the box office, but it set everything in motion. I don't think without Batman Begins you have the MCU, because I think Batman Begins and the Christopher Nolan trilogy set the stage for Marvel to do their thing. And ironically, DC should have been set up to do it themselves, and we know how that went. But I really believe that Batman's importance is so important. Spider-Man was my number one on the board because now that you have Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, Into the Spider-Verse, I believe anyone can be Spider-Man, and that is something that I don't think any hero can compete with. But Batman is the most important hero, not named Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, He's the most important hero. He is what keeps DC relevant. So I feel like I should pick Superman, but I'm picking Batman.
I'll argue one thing, and I think you're overselling Batman Begins as the most important thing because they were already working on the MCU, I believe, at the point of that. They were already looking at building their own brand. So I mean,
no,
it may
I know
not
they
have
were
been as
looking
popular,
for that,
but
yeah.
it was because Iron Man came out before The Dark Knight, which I think is, The Dark Knight is probably one of the. I would say if I'm going most important superhero movie, it would have to be Superman 78. And I don't know if I just teed up Ronald's pick or not.
Yes, you did. But I do, to your point, Chris, I do agree. Maybe not the most impactful, but I think along with the Raimi Spider-Man movies, that first Batman Begins really did, if not like propel Marvel forward, it gave them the idea in their head of like, okay, yeah, superheroes.
It reset the landscape for superhero movies. It made a whole new world possible. And Iron Man was very grounded and not as crazy as some of the other Marvel things. And I think direct influence from Batman Begins. But that's my opinion. But Ron, you have the pick.
All right. So I've got the back-to-back here. And to start, yeah, we'll go with who I thought would be the number one pick in this draft, but we'll go Superman to start out. The S on the chest is probably, if not the most, probably top 2 or 3 most iconic logos in all of superheroes, Marvel, DC, other publications, wherever you want to go. It stood the test of time. And while the screen presence may not have been so consistent throughout the years like it's been, especially post 2000s like it's been with Batman and Spider-Man, I think when you think of superheroes, at least in my head, still to this day, it always goes Superman to me. I mean, superhero, Superman, it's logical, but I think he's just the quintessential, not just American, but especially like the most quintessential American superhero outside of one more in another company who we will get to after, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll take the Man of Steel. Lock it up for that first pick.
Awesome. So first round, we have Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman.
Now the fun begins.
Yeah, now the fun begins as Ron gets to pick another one here. So
yes, and so the whole reason that this draft idea kind of spawned in my head is because there's been a lot of talk on comic book Twitter in the past week or so about Mount Rushmores and who are the 4 most iconic superheroes of all time. And I'm glad to get 2 of my 4 here because I'm going to take Wonder Woman with my second pick. I mean, she's the most notable female superhero icon of all time, and I don't think it's really close in that regard. Really kind of set the standard for what women characters could be in comics and everything that they could be, and that they could be just as good as the men if they're written correctly and given that kind of respect. And I would, like I argued with the S on the chest being one of the most iconic logos, I would argue that the lasso of truth is probably a top 2 or 3 most iconic like superhero item. You know what I mean? To go along. Again, there's other ones that I could say, but I don't want to tip off further picks in the draft. But I mean, you start your draft with Superman and Wonder Woman, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, I was hoping to
bring home
get
the trophy. They'll bring home the trophy at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get 2 of the Trinity. I was thinking maybe he goes Marvel, I get 2 of the Trinity. So that broke my heart because you made the right pick. It was absolutely the right pick, and I would argue that with the legacy of Linda Carter and the way that Gal Gadot played it in live action, I don't think you've had better casting. So Wonder Woman, great pick. I am going to go. See, this is tough.
Now
I'm gonna go Iron Man because of the cultural significance. It's not who I would pick in like my favorites, but in the cultural significance, the MCU has created so many comic book fans. Robert Downey Jr. changed Iron Man's trajectory forever. And I think we can't downplay the MCU significance into what these characters mean to I think profitability wise, I I think Iron Man's just, I do believe that Iron Man movie in 2008 was right up there with some of the most important movies of all time. I wasn't trying to downplay it earlier. So I'm going to go Iron Man because I think this man and Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal changed everything.
I am surprised he went that early, and I think it's a great pick. But I thought just because it was so recent that some of the because I think we can at least all admit, at best, before the MCU, Iron Man was like a B+ player in the Marvel world. You didn't think of him in the same vein as some of the other real heavy hitters that we'll get to later. But I mean, when you're talking about iconic, the guy almost single-handedly started the most successful, not just superhero franchise, film franchise in all of history. And if you cast anybody else besides Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, I don't think you have that. So I think Robert Downey Jr. is just as much responsible for Iron Man being so iconic as the actual character of Iron Man is. But it's a great pick. He started, again, was the cornerstone of the most successful film franchise in history. So.
There we go. If I can unmute myself. All right. Number 6, my second pick here. One of my favorite characters. I just was almost leaning towards someone else, but then just thought better. This character picked up a huge popularity in, I would say, probably the 90s. Definitely the 80s and 90s.
Damn it. I know you're going to take.
But so far, kind of like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, there's only one person that's played this character, and everyone agrees he is the best, and he's going to reprise his role in Deadpool 3. It's Wolverine.
Great.
I almost took Wolverine. He was, I'm looking at
he
my
was also
board.
like the star of those early 2000 films that were kind of at the cusp of, the Raimi trilogy and like the growing popularity of superheroes, though they tried to play it down a bit by wearing all leather. And, but Hugh Jackman just really broke out in that role. People love Wolverine. He's getting his own video game coming out here. So felt like I had to go with Logan here.
Dude, when you think of comic books in the 90s, you think of the X-Men, and most notably you think of Wolverine. You think of that blue and yellow, like it screamed, like you couldn't go anywhere in the 90s without seeing Wolverine t-shirts, Wolverine action figures. And the way that kind of carried over into your point, the movies, into the early 2000s, like what a run. Yeah, Wolverine, Logan's, that's a great pick. He's another guy that I thought might slip through the cracks because we're a DC show here.
Yeah, the animated series too really sells Wolverine as well.
Big time.
So number 7, my third pick here. This one was tough. I think I'm going to pick the person I almost picked for number 6 here. This is kind of a more newer character in the sense of films, but I think he's won the hearts over of many patriots and also women, because he is our America's ass. It's Captain America here is who I'm going to take.
Jordan could do this all day.
Comic book wise, I think, he's one of Marvel's oldest characters. He's been around since like the 40s. He's got some iconic covers, iconic runs. He's passed the mantle on. So we'll see how that goes for the MCU. But Chris Evans is another one of those actors that I feel like you can't imagine another Captain America on film that is Steve Rogers. Of course, we're gonna get Sam Captain America, which is great. So yeah, and I love this. Doesn't have anything to really do with his longevity, but I think the way that people attach themselves, especially women, attach themselves to not just the character because he's hot, right? But because of his love story with Peggy. Like that's something my wife was very attached to, and she's not a big comic book person. So having them have that last dance at the end of Endgame gave people closure to it. I think it's one of those things that I don't really want to see him return unless if it is like an alternate universe or like maybe Secret Wars, but even then I want him to still have had his happy ending. And yeah, so I have to go with Captain America here.
Well, you put me in a pickle because Wolverine and Captain America were my next two on the board.
Yeah.
For
Well,
all the reasons that were said.
Before we move on, I also wanted to say about Captain America, like the sort of to speak to the longevity, his whole creation, like during World War II, and his whole thing was like beating up Nazis. Like there's so much, I think Captain America probably more so than any superhero in our country. I mean, for obvious reasons, his name is Captain America, but just he's the most identifiable and the easiest to get behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and with that too, like I'm a huge soccer fan, right? So they are it's a very international game, and almost any time a player is an American on another team, they call him Captain America. So this is like a sticking thing that it's the first thing that comes to people's minds now. People rocking the Shield shirts, something that you wouldn't have thought about probably even in like the 90s.
Yeah.
The shield is iconic. I think in terms of comics, Captain America is above Iron Man, but I believe in terms of cultural significance, Iron Man. So I was like, I had to get one of them. I knew I had to get one of them. So for my next pick, and yeah, a lot of people are going to say this movie just bombed. Why are you putting the Flash here? But I'm putting the Flash for three reasons. First off, multiverse. What he did for comics, the multiverse. Flash opened the door for everything. Flash has been important for Crisis on Infinite Earths. Flash has been anytime Flashpoint, anytime there's a reset, New 52, Flash is there. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is he had a TV show for 9 years, was the anchor of the Arrowverse. I don't care if it was called the Arrowverse. Flash was everything for the Arrowverse. And whether you like the CW or not, that's what we had. And it is a beloved it is a beloved universe. It is a beloved universe. 9 seasons. Cultural zeitgeist is there. And the third reason the Flash is there is because, damn it, he's my favorite. So I have two good reasons and a selfish reason.
No, that's fair, man. I actually, you mentioned the CW thing. That was one of the main things I had written down because, especially like when the Flash came out, that was in a time where, for the most part, superhero shows were kind of laughed at. You know what I mean? And at most they would get what, a season or two. And to see the longevity that show has had, it's a testament to how iconic the character is. And we're talking about iconic logos. That one on your hat there, that's right up there at the top. You see that, you know it's the Flash.
Absolutely, and it's also a mantle. There was Wally West. 90s kids are going to know Wally West because of the animated shows, especially Justice League Unlimited, my favorite animated show, and Jake Eric. So, yeah, I think the Flash it's the one nearest to my heart outside of Batman. So I had to get I got my guys, dude. I got my guys. I got my trio. I'm happy.
That's good. That's good. All right. So I got two more in a row here. So there's a couple that I'm tossing around in my head right now. All right. So I don't think that I can let this guy, or I don't know if you want to call him a guy or what, get past me. But with my first one, I'm going to go Incredible Hulk. Hulk Smash. That's everybody knows Hulk Smash, man. He's kind of the original like OP tank superhero. You know what I mean? For a character that's been so focused on like pure rage and destruction, there's so much heart and like depth and struggle in his story. It's really what's kind of kept him relevant all throughout these years. Not to mention, Ruffalo doing a heck of a job in the MCU, but even still, for a character that on the surface should just be, a barbaric brute that smashes stuff, there's a reason that he's kind of stood the test of time, and it's because of that heart behind his story. Plus, I'm pretty sure we all grew up having a pair of Hulk hands at one point, so.
I relate to the character. I had meltdowns a lot as a kid, and I really love the Hulk. I think it would have been easy for the MCU to just say, all the legal battles, all the rights, let's just not have the Hulk. They could have easily done that. He's definitely important, and for an older audience, a comic book loving audience, he's about as important as it gets.
I don't want to go on a rant here, but it's going to be a little bit of a rant, I think, of the difference between Marvel and DC. When you have the Incredible Hulk, which pretty much bombed or didn't make as much as they would like, that they're like, we're not even going to bother making a sequel,
And
especially
he's a
because
stable Avenger.
especially because of the Universal rights. But he is still folded into the continuity. He is still, like you said, a main Avenger. When it didn't work with Edward Norton, they recast a Mark Ruffalo. It was a huge upgrade, and like they made it work because they knew that character had potential. And we see them do this all the time. The Dark World, right, which is a movie that people hate, it is a cornerstone of Endgame when they have to go back and get the Aether there. So like I like how they never let like maligned movies or characters down. Like Marvel will just be like, that's part of our plan. We know these characters are important. We're going to use them. Boom. DC takes a look at something bombing and they're like, we're not touching this character again for another 25 years.
Well, this is why DC Studios is so important, because now James Gunn has
won't
the ability. Now, my biggest fear is James Gunn has a 4-year contract and David Zaslav is not a patient man. But I believe in James Gunn and the creation of DC Studios, the hugest thing. But Marvel believes in themselves and they own everything, and just they ignore a lot of the mess. DC's concerned, oh, they're not going to like us. They're not going to like us. The one who is afraid they're not going to fit in never fits.
Yeah. And The Flash, almost as much as I did like it, is almost a prime example of that. Like, I don't think it's a secret at this point. It's been kind of all over Twitter that this Deadpool 3 movie is going to be doing a lot of mopping up of the Fox universe, if you will, and kind of making a bit of light of some of the chicken you-know-what that they made out of that chicken salad over the years that ended up being the Fox X-Men. They're talking about maybe bringing Fantastic Four, some of the other Fox iterations of those that kind of bombed.
Well, they just confirmed today that Jennifer Garner is reprising Elektra in Deadpool 3. That was broken right before we started recording.
Yeah, so they're not making any bones about kind of having some fun with it, and I think DC could have benefited from that a little more too. And I know it's a little tougher because they're not as far removed from the whole Snyderverse stuff as we are, or Marvel is with the X-Men stuff. But I think if you incorporated some of that craziness that happened during the whole, Joss Whedon kind of era with the Justice League and all that stuff, I think it could have benefited the movie a little more if it did. I mean, I'm glad the movie took itself seriously, honestly, but I think it could have taken itself less seriously in a few different ways than they did. Not to take us off on a totally different tangent here. But anyway, it's my pick.
Your pick. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking a lot about cultural impact in this draft, and I think it's probably only fitting that I take the first black superhero in mainstream superhero comics, whatever you want to call it. So we'll go Black Panther with my fourth pick. it almost really can't be quantified, the impact that he's had, especially in recent years. You know, Wakanda Forever, you see athletes doing it, everyone's doing it. It's so universal. And I just kind of think back to when the first Black Panther movie came out and how that was essentially the lead-in for Infinity War. And that was a time where basically that's all anybody should have been talking about was, you know, the culmination of these 20 movies, and it's going to lead up to this big crazy thing. And then Black Panther comes out of nowhere and makes $1 billion and is like the only thing that anybody can talk about at that time, just because of how important it was. And, you know, as three straight white guys here in this podcast, it's very tough for us to sit here and, you know, empathize and understand and truly understand what it means to not be represented on screen. And Black Panther, and most recently kind of Miles Morales, but really Black Panther was the first one on screen that kind of gave them that figure to look up to, you know what I mean? To say, that's me, sort of thing. Only made better by Chadwick Boseman. We don't have to go into all that happened with him, but the fact that he's no longer with us definitely adds to that legacy and makes it that much more important. So, yeah, fourth pick, Black Panther. I think that's a slam dunk.
Yeah, you stole mine again. You're getting good at that. But everything you just said is absolutely perfect. So I'll leave that there. With my fourth pick, I'm going to go with a character that DC desperately needs to be important going forward. A character that, in terms of comics, is as important as anybody we've said. Another one that is a mantle, Green Lantern. I think Green Lantern is one of those things where the fact that the movie audience doesn't know Green Lantern the way that the comic book world does and the animated shows and all this, I think Green Lantern is historically significant. And I would say that required reading for any comic book fan, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, the run that they did with Denny O'Neil is required. Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil, required reading.
Yeah, and again, that's another one with Jon Stewart that kind of gave young Black people somebody to look up to and say, like they did with Black Panther and Marvel, he was kind of that in DC.
And now, like Jessica Cruz, and you know, they have a whole bunch of characters. Yeah, Guy Gardner, a whole bunch of characters that are representing minorities in Green Lantern.
I grew up with Jon Stewart as my Green Lantern, so I mean,
me too. When I saw a white
my
Green
favorite.
Lantern, I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, I did the same thing. Yeah, I was like, "Wait a second, Green Lantern's white? What's up with that?" So it shows you how far we've come and how important he is as a character.
Yeah, no, I don't hate the pick at all. I think that's a great pick.
Well, like you said, too, it's very important for the DCU because this is going to be the entrance into the cosmic stuff, I believe. Right? You have Superman, who is an alien, but most of the time he's focused on Earth. But you have Green Lanterns, which leads into Red Lanterns, Yellow Lanterns, Blue Lanterns, White Lanterns, Black Lanterns, all the colors of the rainbow, and all the cosmic stuff that they have to deal with. So
I have a harebrained theory, and I've told him going back to January, I was telling Chris about this when the first DCU stuff got announced by James Gunn, and he said that the Lanterns was going to be this sort of darker, kind of grittier HBO series akin to True Detective, where it's about them uncovering and sort of unraveling this greater cosmic mystery. You mentioned all those lanterns. I do think that all of those are probably going to get incorporated in that show, maybe in later seasons as well, and through other DCU projects. And I think, so Gods and Monsters is this first, you know, era, theme, phase. I don't know what they're calling it. I think it's probably going to end up leading to chapter. Okay. I could very easily see, and this is just my harebrained theory that I made solely based off of James Gunn's description of the show. If they say it's going to be like creepy and terrifying and dark, I think we're going to end up going to Blackest Night, and that'll probably be the end of the first chapter. Assuming that this is going to be if James Gunn comes out and says chapter 1 is going to be over in 2028, then I'll be like, no. But if this is going to be like a very drawn out, start to finish, long term thing, I could definitely see the Lantern show being sort of the kickoff. I'm trying to think of what I can compare it to Marvel wise. Like the first one that gave us that inkling that we might be headed towards Infinity War. Off the top of my head, I can't think. Maybe Avengers, but I feel like there was some
Yeah,
stuff.
Avengers with Thanos at the end.
Yeah.
Even then, people didn't know it was still going to be the Infinity Stones because Thanos has issues. So
Yeah.
maybe even if you look at Age of Ultron, which I think is actually mentioned in Infinity Stone,
Mhm.
or maybe Guardians, one of the first ones
yeah.
that they ever mentioned that.
Mhm. But yeah, that's my harebrained theory. Not to again take us totally off track.
Well, James Gunn said that in some interview, right, that he couldn't reveal something because of a spoiler in the title. So some people were thinking New Frontier. That's the hot rumor. Blackest Night was something people have thought as well. I do find it interesting that they just called it Lanterns because you're right. Yeah. They can either just rotate Green Lanterns and Red Lanterns and Blue Lanterns and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I really like Flash with the Blue Lantern suit. I think that looks really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. World's finest is what Chris is guessing. All right.
I've guessed it so long, I'm sticking with it.
I'm going to go maybe a shock here. This is a character that is not big on film.
If it's Booster Gold, I give up, dude.
But I think has a very large following in comics and online. And people have been dying to see this character on the screen again. And then they announced a movie in which this character will be on the screen again, but not the version everybody wants. I have to go Dick Grayson Nightwing is what I'm going to go here for pick 12. He's my favorite Bat family member. I think him. I say Nightwing just because I don't want to say Robin and include them all. So I'm going to go with Nightwing, just talking about Dick Grayson from Robin onward. He's becoming a huge hero. Everyone's talking about him being the next America's ass, right? Everybody knows the memes, right, of his bum. And then you also have his comic just celebrated 100 issues, run. Like I said, people have been clamoring to see this guy on film again. We had rumors of a movie back in 2016 that didn't pan out.
He's the better Batman.
I am just so excited to see at some point with the Bat family. Hopefully we see a full Nightwing. That suit is so good too. I just need to see it in live action.
Nightwing is what Batman can't be because Nightwing has a light that will never extinguish. I love Nightwing so much. I'm so glad you made that pick. It's a character that means the world to me. Thank you for making that pick because I was like, I'm so DC heavy. I'm trying not to go there.
I've been all Marvel, I think, so I had to pick a DC.
I love that pick, and I will tell you this about Nightwing. The best, purest version of what Batman's whole idea is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's not often that you can sort of see the sidekick in comic books sort of step up and honestly reach, if not the level of his mentor, close to it. I mean,
Speedy can't do that.
Well, I mean, and you think of how they kind of tried to do that, and they are going to continue trying to do that with Sam and what is it? Kind of passing down the Falcon mantle. We'll see if that works with Sam himself with Captain America. I think we're off to a decent start with him. Dick Grayson's the man, and I think for a lot of us growing up and watching him go from being Robin to being Nightwing and kind of step his way up through the ranks was very identifiable for us as young people. We kind of grew up with him, literally.
Right. And now I'm trying to figure out who I can pick for number 13. Also, here's my little Funko Nightwing. here.
Love it.
This is from Arkham Knight. Okay.
By the way, and really before you move off, I just gotta say
Yeah.
one of the coolest costumes in all of comics.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I
cool.
hate it. What, New 52, they made them with red. I was like, go back to
Mhm.
the blue, and they did, thank God.
I will say I love the New 52 run, but I don't like the red look. I did like the run though.
They just randomly, I guess, wanted to keep his consistency with Robin, but I thought that's the whole point of Nightwing, is to show that he, isn't
Different
Robin.
from Robin, yeah.
But blue and black just looks so good anyway.
Yeah.
All right, this is a struggle pick here. I'm not sure who to pick. Is this my last one here? As I'm on number 5. It's like debating between DC and Marvel right now on who I should
smart.
pick.
I went DC, Marvel. So now I could just kind of
now you get to choose who wins.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I don't know. I would like some representation here. So I will go with a character that is maybe on the rise a bit. Even though the haters will not like that, I guess I'll say. She starred in an Avengers video game recently. Her comic series was very recent as well. She's a newer character. She just had a TV show that was not watched as much, but the movie is coming out with her as well. Yeah, she just died in the comics.
What the hell, Marvel?
Miss Marvel is who I'm going to go with. I do think this can set her in the MCU, can set her into a whole new stratosphere of popularity.
It's a good show too.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think the trailers, Marvels, I think she looks like a very fun, almost the best part of that movie. And, like I said, she's starting to grow in popularity. People are really upset that she just died in the comics. Don't worry. They'll bring her back. I almost guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
They're
only doing that so they can, because, we all saw Miss Marvel, and we saw at the end they revealed that she's a mutant. The only reason they did that in the comic was so that they can have the continuity and bring her back as a mutant.
There you go. That's a good idea. So yeah, the Inhumans are a bust, right? Like nobody's picking that as their pick in this draft is the Inhumans. Yeah, the X-Men. Look, if people don't know the whole story of the Inhumans, the original royal family were created, but then they launched into creating the Inhumans because Ike Perlmutter was just really upset that he didn't have the merchandising rights to the mutants and the movie rights to the mutants. So they just came up with this BS that is almost the same stuff. Anyway, she is, I think, just on the cusp. I had to take a wild card pick here, I think. And I wanted some more representation I haven't picked a woman yet. And I was also doing Black Widow, but I think her popularity is on the decline a bit. Yeah. So I had to go with somebody I think is on the up here.
I was getting ready to call you a sexist, Jordan. No.
Some people probably would if they saw my team. I mean, without that.
All right, Chris, your last pick.
Well, all right. I can't believe I get this guy. I really can't. And I got to get a little Marvel in here. So I'm going to go Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. I feel like Fantastic Four is a cheat answer, so I'm going Reed Richards, the only guy whose intelligence can get close to Batman's in comics. Reed Richards is a guy who I don't think the Fantastic Four's space in comic book history is respected enough. I think there's a reason they tried so many times to make the Fantastic Four a thing in the movies. I also think that
they nailed it 2 times, though. I love those early 2000 movies.
Well, I will tell you that they started too early.
Reed Richards.
They started too early with the Fantastic Four. The MCU has to save it. It's an important There's just so many things that introduced into comics. So I'm gonna go Reed Richards, the smartest man in comics, not named Bruce Wayne.
He's
Yeah.
smarter than Bruce Wayne too.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's way smarter than Bruce
fifth
Wayne.
pick, first pick. I don't know, man.
But yeah, no, Reed is the man. He's somebody that I considered for my last pick coming up here. It's tough because I'm trying to think of how to put this in a coherent way. It almost felt like they were a little too ahead of their time in the early 2000s. Like when they were making superhero movies in the early 2000s, it was those X-Men movies, it was the Raimi movies. They had their small moments of camp, but for the most part, they were very serious and very grounded. And then those Fantastic Four movies came around, and they were a little more sort of, theater of the mind-ish. You kind of really had to suspend your disbelief. Watching Reed Richards ballroom dance and, like extending his body and his neck's going. It was just like, this is weird. This isn't what I'm used to. So I think they were a bit of a victim of that. Obviously, in sort of the early 2010s, they kind of gave them a bit more of
the gritty reboot.
Yeah, they went big gritty, and then obviously all the stuff in Secret Wars with the comics and Reed, and it just so hopefully they can find a way to translate that into the MCU and not create another flop movie. And no more Galactus Cloud, goddammit.
And don't bring Ultimate Reed Richards into the MCU, please. Let's keep him far away.
Give us the Maker. If you're gonna do the Ultimates, Reed, just skip all the Ultimate stuff. Just make him the Maker and put him in Secret
Wars. I do want to say I think it's an interesting pick because I do think at one time I probably would have picked him, but I think that there is this thought that like this next iteration has to be it. You know what I'm saying? Like because of in some people's mind there hasn't been a good Fantastic Four movie ever. Now I really like the first two. I remember my mind being blown seeing that Rise of the Silver Surfer trailer, and Silver Surfer comes out of that window on the building, and I was like, I gotta see this movie.
Silver Surfer is cool.
Yeah, I love him. But I just think they do have to nail Reed. But
the fact that they're still trying after they've tried so many times.
Oh yeah, because they're important. They're important comic property. Yeah.
It makes my pick show you why it's my pick.
Well, I'll just say I'm glad Krasinski is not going to be.
I am too.
For the MCU.
Me too. John. I was just the whole time I was watching Multiverse of Madness, I was just waiting for him to do like the pan into the camera. You know what I mean? Like Jim.
Wait, see, I was for it when people were like fan casting it. I was like, oh, I could see it, right? And then I watched it in the theater, and I was like, I don't think he nailed it. Like, I don't think he did a good job. Now, of course, it sounds like he only had like a day. And then I saw it again like the next day, and it cemented it. I was like, no, I'm not digging this like I thought I would. So I wasn't one of those people that were like dead set against it immediately. Because some people have that conception that like the only people that didn't like Krasinski, Reed Richards were the ones that didn't want him in the first place. And for me, it was just, I was like, all right, like you got your shot, dude. Let's see what you do with it. And he didn't do anything with it.
No, that's the stuff that makes me laugh. It's like, how can you watch that and I love John Krasinski as an actor. I think A Quiet Place is awesome. Obviously, The Office is awesome. But you didn't believe what he was saying in Multiverse of Madness. You know, an incursion occurs when it sounded very much like he was reading a script. So the way that people have kind of like sort of weaponized themselves against anybody who has that take, it is very funny. All right,
fandoms are weird.
that they are. So,
and Mr. Irrelevant.
Yes, Mr. Irrelevant. There's a couple places I could go here. If you guys wanted after this, just after the draft, we can do a couple honorable mentions, just people that we
absolutely
that we might. What do I do here? I'm torn between two people, and I feel like they're very much kind of in the same role in their respective universes. All right, we'll go Thor. He's another one whose popularity was.
I debated it before Miss Marvel. I will say that. It was a thought.
Yeah, it's tough to leave him still on the board at the end of this draft. Obviously, he's another one that was made way more popular with the MCU with Chris Hemsworth, but was still a well-respected comic character before that. Before the MCU, I probably would have had him at that time, at least, above Iron Man and above Captain America in terms of comic stuff at that specific time. I'm talking like early to mid 2000s. We were talking about sort of iconic props, Mjolnir.
Yes.
Everybody knows Thor's hammer, man. It's right up there with the lasso and Cap's shield in my mind. And he was also, for me, Thor is kind of that character for people who are afraid to admit they're into comics. Like, it's just enough comic-y and superhero stuff, but it also has that sort of like Viking kind of, and I'm talking
mythology.
Yeah, it's got like, in a small sense, like Game of Thrones-ish kind of vibes to him. Non-Taika Waititi withstanding, because we know what he's done in the last two movies, and that's not to say they were bad. I loved Ragnarok. I wasn't so big on Love and Thunder, but you got to.
Which came out a year ago today, by the way. It was on my time hop today.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I saw it a year ago.
Good times. Even though it wasn't my favorite Marvel movie, I still had a good time at the theater seeing it. But so yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with the God of Thunder as your last pick. So we'll tie it up with him.
This is another good pick because when I think about it again, if we look at transcending sports, right? Like transcending comics into sports and stuff, you had Noah Syndergaard who went by Thor, and as at the same time Matt Harvey's going by the Dark Knight, right? And it was in that era where all of this was really transcending just the mediums itself, where people did that. I would even go back to, like you said, I would even go back to the 80s, all right? Because Thor was well known enough to to feature in a little known comedy called Adventures in Babysitting, played by Kingpin Vincent D'Onofrio. He's just a guy.
I did not know that.
He's just a guy, but like this girl is so obsessed with comics and loves Thor, and he does have like the long flowing blonde hair. D'Onofrio. Think D'Onofrio as a really ripped guy with blonde hair, and that was him in the 80s, like 1989. Adventures in Babysitting, and he.
Vincent D'Onofrio with long blonde hair.
There you go.
No, Vanessa, I will not have long blonde
At one point, like, the girl has like a Thor helmet and gives it to him and everything. So like, it was like, that was one of my first experiences of Thor. I grew up watching that movie all the time, and that was like the closest I would get to Thor in live action or anything. So and now he's got 4 films. He really reached another stratosphere once Ragnarok in popularity. I would even say maybe Avengers. Like, that first Thor movie didn't move the needle that much.
That's my problem with Thor, though. In the Avengers movies, he's fantastic, and in his own movies,
I love the first Thor. I do love the first Thor. When he throws that mug down and asks for another,
it is a funny moment.
Hook, line, and sinker for me.
That is a funny moment. I loved Ragnarok. Love and Thunder, I could go either way with. I mean, I like parts of it, and I love parts of it, and there's parts of it I'm just like, really?
It was just it was a criminal misuse of Christian Bale in your comic book universe. That was basically, and especially because
agreed.
When you hear that they filmed so much other stuff that didn't make it into the movie with him, it's like, all right. That was also during a really weird time with Marvel, though. That was the Bob Chapek era, where it was just get it out. It's got to be under 2 hours. Get it out. And it just, a lot of the products suffered as a result. Something that we're still seeing the effects of right now.
Yeah, well, we in this household we pray and worship the return of Bob Iger every night. So
Mhm.
that's how we are in this house.
And we also worship at the altar of the 2 and 2 model of James Gunn. 2 movies, 2 TV shows.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't get cute.
Mhm.
And it's amazing because we're talking about all these amazing characters, and it's like, and all these years of stories. Like, how could they go wrong? And it's because they just wanted to get it out there. So
Yeah.
I think that's usually the biggest problem with superhero movies. They just wanted to get it out there. I mean, look at Batman versus Superman. It's like, dude, if you had just taken a pause and let Man of Steel 2 happen first, and maybe introduced Ben Affleck in his own movie, that whole thing doesn't happen. But hey, we're not getting into that can of worms right now. Does anyone have honorable mentions?
Well, just really quick before we'll kind of put the
Oh
bow on
yeah.
it here, because that movie, Gore the God Butcher is Thor's most, he's his Green Goblin. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
Mhm.
that Jason Aaron run that he had was tremendous, and to botch it the way they did when there's so much good source material to pull from was surprising. But yeah, we'll get to some honorable mentions
But,
here.
all right, before we do honorable mentions, I'm just going to recap the teams
Right.
for the listeners here. So, my team was Spider-Man, Wolverine, Captain America, Nightwing, Miss Marvel. Chris's team here was Batman, Iron Man, The Flash, Green Lantern, Reed Richards, and Ron's team was Superman, Wonder Woman, um, Incredible Hulk, Black Panther, and Thor.
Think I'm
I'm
taking
glad.
this home, boys.
I'm glad. Hey, I'm glad this isn't a 5v5 because I don't think anyone's beating
I think
a
popularity-wise,
Kryptonian.
though, I win. I'll
No,
just say that.
well, you know what? I don't think anyone's beating a Kryptonian, Wonder Woman, and Hulk. And then you have Black Panther and Thor. It's like that.
And a literal
No one's
god.
beating that team. So I'm glad it's not a 5v5.
Mm.
If it was, my strategy would have been entirely different. But I got my guys. I'm happy that I got Batman, Flash. I honestly, that's all I care.
So I'll just shout out some of the ones I had thought about picking throughout this course of it, which were Daredevil. I
Yep.
was thinking Daredevil here at some point. I was also thinking, I'm not sure how this would count, but I was also thinking Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond. At
All
one point,
right.
people begging for a movie of that, and
I love it.
I grew up with that show, so those are 2 names that instantly leapt out to me as, like, in my mind when I was thinking, like, okay, who am I going to go with now? Those 2 jumped up. Yeah, how about you, Chris? Any honorable mentions you thought of?
All right. So Ninja Turtles. I didn't know how to put it into the game. I classify them as superheroes, but there's 4 of them plus Splinter. I didn't know how to put it in the game. So then I was thinking Daredevil was an idea because Daredevil inspired the Ninja Turtles. I grew up obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. So on top of my bookcase, I have the Funko Pops of all 4. I'm a huge Ninja Turtle guy. So Ninja Turtles is definitely my number 1 honorable mention. And now that it's out of the draft, I'm just going to put them all. Although if I have to pick a favorite, Raphael.
Me too.
Yeah.
Not Leonardo? Come on.
No, my brother always liked Leonardo. I always was Donatello. Donatello was always my favorite. I started reading some of the comics, the IDW run, and I realized, shit, I'm Raph. Like that's the one that I identify with. So Ninja Turtles, and then for my second one, I'm gonna go with Martian Manhunter.
Mm.
I didn't think he had this cultural significance to be on the list, but he's one of my favorites, and his impact in the New Frontier, in a lot of different stories, his impact in the animated realms of DC. very important, and he was a main character on Supergirl, the TV show. And I think he's one of the best actors of the Arrowverse. The guy who plays him, and I'm forgetting the name of him, and I feel bad about that now. But yeah, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles and Martian Manhunter.
I threw some other names up there too: Professor X and Supergirl and Black Widow. I know I mentioned Black Widow during the show too, so wanted to throw those names up there.
Yeah.
Ron, any honorable mentions we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I've got a few. So I definitely Supergirl and Professor X were both on my list. I also had Aquaman. He was the one I was going back and forth on my last pick between him and Thor. Really, just because, like, in my mind, Aquaman is like the most, like, how did we get here character ever? Because on paper, like, oh, he's a superhero and he talks to fish, like, that has so much room to go wrong if it's not, like, done correctly. It can come off campy, it can come off corny, and the way that they've done it to make him, like, cool as the other side of the pillow, not only in the comics but with Momoa on screen, has been really awesome. So he was my sixth man, I guess we can say. I also
It is
Blade.
amazing we didn't mention Aquaman, who is the only DC hero other than Batman to make $1 billion, but
Yeah,
we didn't even bring him up.
But that seems like such a fluke if you look at it in like the retrospective. I feel like it was like such a fluke. Like people were like, "Holy shit, this movie is good." The word of mouth was good. It was December. There wasn't a lot going on.
Made a lot in
against it.
China too, which Aquaman 2 is not going to do.
And the world had Momoa fever at that point. It was just coming off Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Every mom over 40 with, all respect to our moms, we love our moms, but
and I love the movie.
Love them some Jason Momoa, and he could have been, in the Tooth Fairy sequel with The Rock, and they would have gone to see it.
I do want to just shout out here that I just watched Aquaman for the first time in March. I've owned it since it came out on Blu-ray, but I had not watched it until my flight down to Florida in March.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
It was all right.
Okay, yeah, it was a good movie.
I'm not a big Aquaman fan when it comes to the movie version of Aquaman.
Yeah.
It's a comfort movie for me. It's just as beautiful.
I like clean cut Aquaman wearing the orange and green.
Yeah, but that world is so beautiful. That world is just, I got lost in the aquatic wonderland. It was cool.
It was.
Another tangent, we were talking about Supergirl. Supergirl has a better origin story than Superman. And it makes her the most underused and underutilized character in DC Comics. Because, she comes to Earth. She's old enough to have known Krypton. She was supposed to protect him. Goes in the Phantom Zone. She has every right to be a bitter, angry jerk of a woman, and she is not. And she's a symbol of hope in a very different way than her cousin. So, most underutilized character in DC Comics.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just a couple more that I had on my list. I had Blade, which it might be like a pick, but everyone likes to point to Raimi's Spider-Man movie as being like the first Marvel movie that really showed that these movies could have some legs. But that Blade movie, people were talking about that in the 90s. I was only a kid at the time, but I remember Blade being one of my first introductions to superheroes.
I haven't seen Blade.
Oh, Blade's awesome. The other ones, the later ones, the 2 and 3, not so great. But Wesley Snipes is in the 90s was A-list as they come. Excuse me. And even now, he's like, Blade is one of the movies that people still most closely identify him with. So yeah, Blade was on my list. And also kind of in Chris's vein of going off the beaten path a little bit with Ninja Turtles, I had Spawn, just because it was so, like, in a time where it was just, it's Marvel or DC for your superheroes, you know what I mean? And for this little, it was Image Comics, I believe, correct?
Yeah, yep.
for him to just come out of nowhere and be such a smashing success and be so damn cool at the same time was really awesome. So he was somebody else I considered as well.
I put Shang-Chi on there as well because I debated it. Because he was in a very popular film that is compared to some of the other Phase 4 films when you look at the general public.
Mm-hmm.
And people clamoring for a sequel for that, and hopefully seeing him in some of these other films as they build up to it. So, if you look at the comic history of Shang-Chi, there's not a lot there. I remember reading some before Shang-Chi came out. There wasn't a lot. So I do hope that they capitalize off of that and start really making more runs or limited series, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could also throw The Thing in there as well. It's probably the other one.
Yeah,
but
Ben Grimm for sure.
Even this point, will be
another thing. Even Swamp Thing as well. Swamp Thing could be in
there.
Scarlet Witch. I don't think we've said Scarlet Witch.
Oh yeah, Scarlet Witch.
And that's one that should be in there for sure. I mean, she is with Elizabeth Olsen taking a popularity. Like now, it's a little annoying because it's just like anyone's like 5v5 or like who would win, and they just say Scarlet Witch, and then you just end the conversation.
Well,
it's getting a little annoyed with that.
I hate debates of who would win because, as Stan Lee said, whoever the writer wants to win, and that is going to be who wins.
Which is why Batman will always win. I'm sorry, he's just going to beat everybody. Not if I don't
want Batman to win. I can write that. Somebody.
DC will always want Batman to win. DC has to have Batman win. It's literally baked into the entire universe.
That gets old though. I really do hate the whole like Batman with prep time thing.
So here's the reason. The reason it doesn't annoy me that Batman wins. The reason Batman being this immortal man that is completely mortal and has no powers. The reason it doesn't annoy me that he's always going to win. He's not allowed to be happy. Bruce Wayne is the man who has everything. He is the peak of human condition. He knows every kind of fighting style. In every regard, he should be a winner. But he fights the fight that can never be won. And he could easily chalk his life up to a success. But he never will. Because Batman's not allowed to be happy, he can win.
Well, see, I don't like that either. When we talk about fundamental Batman stuff that pisses me off, drives me nuts, it is the fact that he can't be happy. A lot of times we see him old and he's hasn't made any progress at all. And I don't like that. I like it more of like Nightwing, like you said, is his biggest success. And he should be able to be happy for other. I don't know. There's just some writers that take the depressed Batman stuff too far.
I don't like the depressed Batman stuff.
Well, no, I'm just saying how you said he can never be happy. Like, I liked in The Flash that he succeeded, right? He said
but
Gotham has like no crime. And I really like that.
So Batman can't have resolution. Batman fights a battle that can never be won. But what I don't like is when he's a one-note character and he's angry and he's bitter.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he fights the fight that can't be won shows that he's not angry and bitter, that he hasn't given into the darkness. And so it's really a nuanced he can't be happy. And it's not necessarily he grunts and he's pissed off and everything. But I also would say that for all the crap he gets about being a bad dad, Dick Grayson is who he is, partly because he learned he didn't want to be him. And sometimes that's part of being a good dad.
Well, and I also love, in just a sort of a broader DC sense, how Batman is sort of the yin to the yang of Superman. Like, Superman is the one who didn't really have much. You know, he came up on a farm in Kansas, but he is that epitome of, like, hope and positivity, whereas Batman came up and he had everything, well, except his parents, but he had everything from a financial standpoint.
Ouch.
But, you know...
Why did you say that name, dude?
Martha! but yeah, even hell with the Martha thing, it just they're very much the yin to each other's yang. So I think in DC, I kind of like that. Like I go back to the Joker's line, which was about himself in The Dark Knight, but really kind of applies to Bruce as well, about being a dog chasing a car and wouldn't even know what to do when he caught up with one. But he's always just chasing that fight, I guess, for lack of a better term, and trying to clean up a town that's never going to be clean, no matter how hard he tries. And it's understandable why he would kind of begin to harbor some resentment. Just my take.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just kind of tired of the overall comic ideology of this works for that character, so we have to not make any improvements. Same thing with Peter Parker, right?
I was just gonna say it. Yep.
He is somebody that can't be happy. When we see in Across the Spider-Verse, he can be happy. He can have a kid. He can have a wife, and he can still be Spider-Man. But instead, Marvel editing is like, we gotta keep knocking this kid down a peg. And it's like,
So,
why? Why do we have to keep shitting on him? I don't get
Marvel
it.
dropped the ball because I got excited that they started the Amazing Spider-Man at 1, and I was like, I'm gonna read this.
With Ramita.
And I read 3 issues, and I said, I'm out. This is not. It's not giving me the Spider-Man vibe that I know. It's not giving me what I want out of a Spider-Man comic. And that was a golden opportunity to get a whole new wave of fans reading Spider-Man comics. I was so excited. And I was like, I'm not down for this ride. I wasn't down for it.
Spider-Man's my favorite character. I'm not even subbed to his series at my comic shop. I mean, that's how much they fumbled the whole thing. The last thing I read that was, I mean, I did get the first issue because it was a 1 and it had like Ramita on like the cover or something. And I didn't really care for it that much. I think I dropped it after that. But the last thing I read that I really enjoyed Spider-Man in, they did a limited run of the new Fantastic Four, which is, Gray Hulk and Ghost Rider and Spider-Man and Wolverine. And that was a really good like 6-issue series with Spider-Man in it, and it was like perfect Peter Parker. It's just I don't understand how all these other mediums can nail it. And Marvel editing, like I really hope that Across the Spider-Verse popularity shows them that okay, this character can be happy and people can still like the guy. Like that's the main thing. They're scared that they're going to ruin the formula, and they already have. It's crazy.
They feel like there's these specific beats they have to hit. It's like him and MJ can't be totally happy. Oh, Uncle Ben has to be dead. Like there's these things that they feel like they have to do in order to break the character down instead of reinventing in some ways.
Yeah, I was on such a high after Spider-Verse. I wanted to get into some of the, so I think I might get into some of the comics of some of the alternate, Spider stuff. I really enjoyed Spider-Verse. I thought it was so much fun. And Across the Spider-Verse, it was just a high of a moment. Like it felt like watching a comic book, and I was a little jealous. I had to be, as a big Flash fan. I'm watching a packed movie theater and it's 4th freaking weekend, and now we're pulling the Flash out of theaters already. I was jealous. I was a little rotted. Actually, it was a horrible movie experience because there were so many kids just constantly going to the bathroom and telling their parents they had to get up, and it was like, just watch the goddamn movie. But
it's a long one for kids, to be fair.
No, it is.
2.5
It really
hours.
is.
It's pretty
but
long.
It started 10 minutes in. Come on.
Well, that's just poor.
They didn't even make it through the previews. I was jealous because, but I'm telling you, it's going to get a whole new wave of comic book fans because it felt like watching a comic book. It was pretty cool.
Well, I don't know how much time you have, Ron, so I don't want to tie you up too much. But I would love to have you back, and maybe we do this again, but with super villains.
I was thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, I think we could do that, and we could probably either do another random order or just reverse the order we did this time. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But
Yeah,
that has potential.
I became very jealous of the first and third double picks.
Yeah,
Very jealous.
you were always sandwiched. Yeah. So we can't just reverse it because
Yeah,
Chris would be in
yeah.
the same spot.
Yeah,
we'll do it the
that's
same
what
way.
I did. That's why I brought that up because I was like, I either need to be 3 or 1. Okay, I
Why'd
don't
you do
care
like a
which
random?
one.
You're
You
the one
do
that
the
picked him, so
random.
at least you know it was fair. Yeah.
You do the random and end up 2 anyway.
Yeah, so I thought this was a lot of fun. I think villains are going to be really interesting because DC has all the good ones. They have the
I
best
don't know about
ones.
that.
I don't know about
don't know
that.
about
Yeah, I
that.
don't.
I can name off. I can name off a lot of. I think my top 5 is probably all DC.
I don't even
villains.
think DC has the best rogues gallery. I
Me
I
either.
think
Oh, so you think Spider-Man has the best rogues gallery?
Spider-Man has the best rogues gallery.
I'm going to fight you on that one. Although
100%.
he's number 2.
Fantastic
I'm not
Four is
arguing
there,
he's not
too.
number 2.
Fantastic Four's rogues are freaking incredible too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's a reason Disney bought Fox, and it's for those villains coming up there.
Joker, Dark Side, Reverse Flash. Those are some heavy hitters.
Yeah, we'll
And
see.
this might all be smokescreens too. I might be messing with you.
He's doing this so he can pick Green Goblin first. That's what he's
Yeah.
doing.
Hey, maybe I got pumpkin bombs in the back of this draft. Let's go. It's draft. I love draft. I love messing. Although it is true, DC's got some heavy hitters.
They
Yeah.
do. No, that one there will be a lot more parity, parity. I think in that one in terms of where we each see these villains. I think. No, that'll be just message me on the side and we'll figure it out.
If we can do it next week, it'll probably be a Wednesday next week.
All right. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Wednesday's Tuesday, Thursdays are dead for me. Wednesdays will probably be the best day for me.
Cool. All right, we'll get it done.
Well, we'll wrap it up here. Follow us at Elseworlds DC Fan on all of our socials. Ron, I don't know if you want to shout out where people can follow you at as well.
It's at _Nova Force on Twitter. You'll see a lot of scatterbrained thoughts that I just like to throw out into the ether from time to time throughout the course of the day. And give me a follow. I follow back.
There you go. All right. Well, we will wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching or listening along with us, and we'll catch you next time here on Elseworlds.